Hello, I'm Richard Corbett from Emerge by Design, and welcome to my weekly transit report starting on Monday, November 11th. Now, we have a full moon in Taurus later this week on Friday. So before we jump into the daily charts, I sort of want to set the stage just as to where we are in this lunar cycle. So on November 1st, we had a new moon in Scorpio. And Scorpio has the co-rulers, the planets that the ancient ruler of Scorpio is Mars, and the modern ruler of Scorpio is the planet Pluto. And at the time of the new moon, they were in a very tight opposition. In fact, the new moon was on Friday, and that Mars-Pluto opposition was exact on Sunday. So it was really at the zenith of its frequency. So very interesting to have the co-rulers of Scorpio in this dynamic position. And furthermore, Pluto is about to leave Capricorn, where it is and was at the time of the new moon, on November 19th, which is also coming up very soon. So this was really painting a picture for us that we are in the world of Pluto. This time of Scorpio, where it's the fixed water, the deep within the deep, where the unconscious can become conscious. Pluto is the planet of truth and transformation, but it also can come across in a bit of a fearful way. It is the liminal space we're in this Scorpio world. So that thing about that opposition, I just wanted to remind ourselves that it was telling us that for the entire lunation, it had this signature where we can feel the aggression from Mars and how we balance that with the truth that Pluto is asking us to uncover. Pluto is very associated with mining the resources and the gems within ourself. And so in that sense, we had a picture at the beginning that this lunar cycle was going to be emotional, being in fixed water, that it was going to be deep, ruled by Mars and Pluto. That makes me think of Halloween, Day of the Dead. I mean, we have ancient traditions of connecting with the underworld during this time of the year. And all of that was really elevated for this particular cycle due to these circumstances that I'm describing. And then so we had the new moon with all that going on, and then a week later, which would have been just this past Friday, we had our first quarter moon. And at that time, well, at every first quarter moon, that's when the sun and the moon are squaring each other. So we've been growing in this lunar illumination in the evening, right? She's getting bigger every minute of every day. And at that square, that is a very frictional, dynamic, energetic time to move something forward with this process. So that, again, things may have been coming up. Now, the moon at the first quarter was in gate 13. And in the body graph, we call that the gate of the listener. It's in the G center of the higher self. So I think it was really offering this symbolism that as we move through this emotional lunar cycle where the depths of our past, of things that are unconscious, things we may have swept under the rug, are coming up, and that we can listen to them, to listen to our bodies. You know, if you might be having any health issues that have something you thought you dealt with from the past, but they're coming back again, that would be normal. If there's altercations in relationships that maybe we thought we had moved beyond, they may be coming back again, right? This is a time when Pluto opens up the underworld and things come to the surface. And so again, in that sense, it had the billing as a very stimulating month. So just want to encourage us all to be aware of what's happening, to ground ourselves with our modalities that connect us to our body, and to really listen to the messages. Because anything in this lunar cycle that is stimulating or triggering us in a deep way, to remind ourselves to go inward. When I get to the charts, I'm going to show how much individual circuitry is being activated right now. And in the human design system, whenever we're talking about individual gates and channels, we're talking about the deepest, most inner core of who we are. What is my truth? What is my inspiration? What is my unique sense of authenticity that I'm here to live out my hero's journey and share with the world? Well, all of these messages are on the table this lunar cycle. And so that, again, it's an inside job right now. We can see a lot of polarity in the outer world. It's very noisy. It's very confrontational. Okay, this is part of that Mars energy as well. But the charts, as we'll look at them, they are pointing us inward. if this stimulates us in a deep way to sit with it, to become aware of it, and to accept it and decide how we will move forward as a result of it. And of course, as always, following our personal authority, which we find in our human design body graph, and developing that physical felt sense of connection with our guiding light, our personal authority. Very important to be connected to that during a lunar cycle like this. So after the first quarter moon this last Friday, that brings us to today. So let me go ahead and jump into the Monday chart. So as we orient ourselves to the two charts here, we can see the sun as of Monday is in gate 43, putting the earth in gate 23. They're both in line 2. And what this is bringing us is the channel of structuring in the body graph, a design of individuality. It's also nicknamed genius to freak. Again, it's speaking to that individual chemistry within ourselves about our own personal breakthrough creative insights and how we can, 23, assimilate or structure them in a way that others can understand us. But right out of the gate, we're seeing this week, as we head into the full moon on Friday, that there's going to be a growing illumination and emotional energy from the moon. And part of the sun-earth expression is our own voice of truth, our own individuality. This is really, as I was saying, these are the questions as I'm being stimulated right now out in the outer world here. And I too have been triggered for sure. I'm trying to take that deep breath to go inward and say, what is my truth saying? What does this mean for me? Not to get destabilized with it or get caught in something where it pulls me outside of myself. It's to go inward. Now, there is some challenging aspects this week that are going to contribute to the sense of uneasiness, making it a little unclear, right? This is why being grounded can be so important. As we look at the astrological wheel, we have Chiron in Aries in gate 51, line 6. We have Jupiter in Gemini in gate 45, line 3, and they're forming a supportive sextile. Now, I've talked about this in numerous videos. It's been in effect for several weeks, and we're going to have it for some more time in the future. So it's been very supportive. It's been hanging in there. They're both still at 19 degrees in their respective signs. This is the expansive, benevolent power of Jupiter in a supportive communication with the wounded healer. And it's in that gate 51, the gate of shock, part of the channel of initiation. So this really is an initiation. We are being invited to move into this authenticity. Now, the challenge we're looking at is those two planets are, as of Monday, forming what we call in astrology a yod with the sun in gate 43. A yod is when we have two quincunxes from this apex planet. And so we have supportive energy from the Chiron and Jupiter, but the quincunxes to the sun are making it very confusing. Quincunx is 150 degrees. It's hard to get a reference. It's kind of like a fuzzy radio station. So this may add to some of the tension on Monday. It's like, where do we go from here? With all the energy that I've been outlining in these keynotes and description of what these symbols are sharing with us, it's a little hard to see on Monday, but we can say that what we're working on is that life force energy of the sun in the gate 43. We may get some breakthrough ideas or insights, just not sure how that may fit into the overall story. It's also in a bit of an emotional day because the moon is traveling through Pisces. She would have already had her conjunction with Saturn, and later today on Monday afternoon, the moon will be making a conjunction with Neptune in gate 36. So just to say that the keynotes as we move into this week is, how is any dysregulation or overstimulation or challenges, anxiety, any of those negative sensations, breathe. What is my body sharing with me? How can I grow and learn? And from that Chiron, how can I heal whatever wound or limitation or fear, doubt, and insecurity may be holding me back? There can be a lot of fear right now. This U.S. election has been very stimulating. The world stage is very stimulating. They are definitely in interesting times, to say the least. And so it's very easy to get caught up in this fear mongering, but yet in the charts, there is tremendous support to alchemize that fear into what is my truth? What is my unique contribution? I'm going to be saying a lot more about Uranus as we head towards the full moon, but the planet of shock, change, revolution, and innovation is in another individual gate called the gate of contribution. So between the gate 8 and the channel of structuring, there's a lot of opportunity here to continue to discover our unique voice and what is empowering about that. Because the fear can take us away from that. But alchemizing fear into personal creativity can be self-empowering, and that's a large part of this message of this week. So that's Monday. Let's go ahead and roll into Tuesday. And when we get to Tuesday, one of the major aspects in the astrological wheel are a couple, there's two I want to mention. One is that Mercury, traveling through Sagittarius, currently in gate 5 in the sacral center, is forming its exact square with Saturn in Pisces in gate 63. Now, Saturn is going to be turning direct in just a few days, so it's really holding its space, as it has been moving in retrograde ever since July. So it was finally reached the end of that retrograde phase, and as it stations and prepares to move forward in a couple days, right before the full moon, it's really holding space in the gate 63, specifically line 2. Whenever we see Saturn in this retrograde phase, it's doing restructuring of the archetype of that gate. And so as it slows down and stops and stations and prepares to move forward, this is where we may get some forward movement on the restructuring of our doubts. So when I think of logical doubts, this is what we're talking about. You know, what doubts have I had from the past that are no longer serving me as we head into the future? And this is part of the work that Saturn is doing there. And that point is really important, again, because Pluto is in the final days of Capricorn, and Saturn rules Capricorn. So when we think about the sign of Capricorn, it's very structure-oriented. When we think about it on a global scale, this is our government institutions, world banks, all of these world institutions. And we've seen since Pluto has been in Capricorn since 2008, for 16 years, we have seen Pluto bring some of the truth we didn't know before. How many of these institutions are no longer capable of either telling the truth, much less, or helping the people they serve. And so this has been part of this destabilization of the world scene that we're witnessing in live time. But on a personal level, I'm thinking about structures from Capricorn in my own life. Capricorn is structured, detail, achievement-oriented. So how may have built up structures that I find are no longer serving me. And that's what this Pluto transit in the final days of Capricorn, this is why things may be coming up in our body, in our conversations, things from our unconscious are coming out that we can be aware of now, things that we may need to let go, that is no longer serving our truth. And that is Pluto's job. It is here to strip away the ego facade to get to our core of inner truth. And so that's why it can appear destabilizing at times, but if we allow the process to unfold in its own mutative way, it can be deeply empowering. And that Pluto, while this is happening, is in an individual gate. Gate 60, in the channel of mutation. And the tagline of that in the Ravi Ching is that acceptance is the first step in transcendence. And so I think we can all take that to heart and realize that in these final days here, things may come up and we can let them go. We can find ways to move into our new voice of truth. Saturn is restructuring our logical sense of what is correct for us. And this is all adding to this ongoing story of how am I moving into my pure authenticity with my own personal contribution of inspiration. So Mercury squaring Saturn. The other thing is that the Sun, still in that gate 43, is forming a square and a half with the North Node, and the Moon is basically conjunct the North Node at this noontime chart. And then because of that, we also have a half square with the Sun to the South Node. here we go with these frictional energies, half squares, square and a halves. Basically, again, that sun in this position yet again on Tuesday is in a confusing way of what is it? What is the breakthrough? Like, we'd like to have the clear answer, but we just have to be patient, I think. I think this particular aspect on Tuesday is just encouraging more patience to realize that we're living within many patterns. There's a pattern within a pattern, right? And with this Pluto changing signs for the next, it won't be back in Capricorn for a couple centuries. There's big frequencies at play right now. And again, in this liminal space where we can get unsure or unclear, but to just, and again, I keep saying breathe, but whatever modality takes you into your sense of personal creativity could be very self-empowering right now. But a little bit confusing there on Tuesday with that, with both the Mercury square Saturn and then the sun and these aspects to the nodal axis, along with the moon, and the moon being very emotional, but it's in the gate 17. And so, you know, with the nodes right now and having the North Node in gate 17, again, this is contributing to a lot of the noise. Everybody's got an opinion right now, and it's very easy to get caught up in that noise out there. But yet, once again, we're finding that by going inward right now, there's very fertile soil for personal mutation and self-growth. Okay, let's go ahead and roll it into Wednesday. And as we get to Wednesday, I didn't mention it, but 2 days ago, Venus had moved into Capricorn as well. And so currently on Wednesday, Venus is already, that happens in gate 10 line 2. She's already into gate 10 line 5. And what happens on Wednesday is Venus in Capricorn in that gate 10, the gate of the higher self behavior, also think of self-love and correct behavior, is forming another quincunx. I keep using these words this week with that Mars. Now, Mars has moved into gate 31 in Leo in the throat center. And so having another quincunx, this confusing, fuzzy energy between Venus, the planet of our values and pleasure and what we want in this world, and Mars, how we go get it, you know, we might be experimenting with this Mars in gate 31, the gate of influence, right? In the channel of leadership. How is my energy or my voice influential? And that's what that makes me want to say that as we're listening to our conversations this week and keying into things that we hear our own self say, does it resonate? Is it the current truth, or does it need to evolve, right? And so listening to our stories, am I having an influential voice the way it resonates with my truth right now? I think these can be really helpful indicators of how we're coming along with this deeply plutonic, powerful lunar cycle. And we can also see that Uranus, well, I mentioned Uranus in that gate 8, the sun is moving towards its opposition, and that's going to be tied up with the full moon that I'll get to here in just a few moments. So let's go ahead and roll this into Thursday. And on Thursday, from the astrological wheel, the only aspect that's still really tight is that Venus quincunx to Mars, which I've just mentioned that. Otherwise, not a lot of exact aspects on Thursday, but still more, I think, of just this liminal space, not really clear, really hard. I mean, with this much Scorpio lunar cycle and this Pluto here on Thursday, it's only 5 days away from leaving Capricorn. Again, just to the reminder to really listen, allow things to come to the surface. This is the power of the time to find this new information in that sense. You know, there's something hidden that has the opportunity to come into our consciousness, and I think that is really one of the biggest messages. And then finally here, let's get to the full moon. Here's the full moon. Now, this will be taking place on Friday the 15th at 2:28 p.m. Mountain Time. And one of the most important things to mention about this full moon is that this will be the last full moon with Pluto in Capricorn. So for 16 years, every full moon, well, not actually, there was a couple where Pluto tipped its toes into Aquarius, but for the most part, for 16 years, we've had full moons in Capricorn. This will be the last one. So it already is bringing with it the deep emotionality of the Scorpio season and the Scorpio new moon lunar cycle that we're still in. This is the full moon, which is always the moon at her zenith of illumination. It's just sort of this, the full moon, right? She's so beautiful in the night sky, but it can be extremely emotional in that sense. Now, we still have this channel of structuring that we've had all week, and the moon is lined up with the earth, and so this full moon is taking place in gate 23, line 6. This is, again, this individual frequency of personal truth and expression. It's about what is my breakthrough? What is my insight that I'm here to share in this current lifetime? So very powerful lunation in terms of that. If we're focused on our own creative side of ourselves and what we're here to do on this planet, in spite of all the challenges and all the noise right now, if we're going inward and really working on our message that resonates with our truth, this is a full moon for us. There's going to be great energy for that. That line 6 is the line of truth. This is the line of the role model and wisdom. And so we can find deep truths within our expression by listening to our stories. We also, I got to mention, we got the channel of judgment down here because Venus has moved into gate 58 and we have the south node in gate 18. So again, this is part of the noise I think we'll hear with all the different opinions from everybody. Everybody's trying to tell us which way to go and what to do. And it can be so very confusing with all these quincunxes that are happening through the week. But again, at the full moon, to really stand in gratitude, stand in appreciation for how far we may have come individually and where we have yet to go in spite of these large challenges facing the global community. The way we can help the world right now is to be ourselves. This is kind of a precursor message to 2027, which is something we talk a lot about in the human design community. We are moving into an individual age. We are moving into individual circuitry, and in line 6, we're talking about finding individual truth. This is what our future currency will be, is personal authenticity. And so even this lunar cycle seems correlating with that. I want to mention that channel of judgment again. You know, Venus being this planet of our internal harmony, what we love, the beauty and aesthetics we appreciate, is in the gate of aliveness, wants to be alive. Venus wants to really feel itself, to feel that emotional spirit here in this root gate. But the thing is, Venus is also, at the time of this full moon, is in a T-square to the nodal axis. And I feel like what that means is just the stakes are high. This is really about our life trajectory. Like finding what this truth is for each of us is really important. It's kind of why we're here. And it can be difficult shadow work. It's just not something that necessarily happens on its own. We've got to allow ourselves to be there and follow our authority. But it does indicate this trajectory with that Venus in that T-square to the nodes, and it is the channel of judgment. And so just to be careful of getting caught up in it, right? It's not about listening to other people judge us. It's not about us judging other people. We are all where we are, and we're all at the right place at the right time, no matter the challenges. And it's here to stimulate us to find this authenticity. So just don't want to get caught too up in that. Actually, that makes me think that I didn't mention, back at that first quarter moon, we also had the channel of inspiration when the moon was in gate 13, but we had the channel of inspiration, another individual channel that took place in the first week of this cycle we're in. And here again at the full moon, we're having the channel of structuring. So another very strong individual energy. And the other thing to layer on top of that is that this full moon in Taurus is conjunct Uranus. Now, I mentioned Uranus being in that gate 8. At the exact time of the full moon, Uranus has retrograded all the way back to gate 8, line 1. And that is an individual gate, and line 1 is the foundation of every hexagram, and that line is named the line of honesty. Honesty. I mean, honesty is powerful right now. Vulnerability is powerful. I mean, this is how we navigate change, is to be honest with ourselves first, honest with others in our sharings, and again, to be authentic and vulnerable. This is where power is, and that can actually soothe the fear, doubt, and insecurity, I think, if that's where our energy is focused. So Uranus is bringing its electric quality, its innovation, its revolutionary quality. So here we have this whole cycle I've been describing, and the full moon at the zenith of illumination is conjunct Uranus. It's a real breakthrough opportunity. I really just see it as that. There's real potential, in spite of, again, all the challenges I feel like many of us may be facing right now. We got to keep our eye on the prize here, and the prize is what is in it for me. And that may sound a little selfish, but it's more of a higher self, divine selfishness. You know, if we're sharing our voice of truth and authenticity, we're sharing a higher frequency to the world itself. And so there's nothing more beautiful than that. And that's really the message that I think this entire lunation is sharing with us. So yeah, there's the full moon. It's conjunct Uranus. The full moon itself is in line 6, again, the line of truth, wisdom, and authenticity in the 23, this individual expression. What is my voice now? Right? What resonates down to my bone marrow core of what I want to shout at the mountaintop? Who am I? This is really what's behind this frequency with all this individuality. So what else can I say other than very powerful full moon? I think it'd be, again, to stand grounded within everything that we feel appreciative for, things that we're grateful for, that we've been, our allies that have supported us. That Jupiter in gate 45, that's tribal energy. So there, we have allies. And if we can stand in that and take small steps, right? Sometimes the first step is the hardest. So if you are sensing sense of overwhelm or anything of that nature right now, I just want to encourage you that you're right where you should be right now for yourself. We all are. And we can go from there. We can realize that we can embrace this deep, dark, hidden, unconscious energy. It actually holds the gems for our own personal transformation. And I think this full moon is full of that, being the last full moon with Pluto still in the sign of Capricorn. All right, so let's go ahead and wrap out the weekend here. We'll move into Saturday. And on Saturday, the sun will leave, or I should say move into gate 14. So we have Saturday starting out with 14 line 1 in the Earth and its opposition in that gate 8. So what's happening, we've been talking about Uranus in gate 8 over here and the sun moving into its opposition. And so the Uranus will be conjunct the Earth in the chart here. The point being here is that not only did we have Uranus conjunct the full moon by less than a degree, so 2 hours after the exact full moon at 2:28 p.m., the moon would have conjuncted Uranus. That's, again, a lot of electric energy for those hours. And here we are the very next day after the full moon, and the sun is moving into the exact opposition. It's actually going to be exact later, I think, Saturday evening. So this is really going to be in effect Saturday and Sunday. So if you add the full moon in conjunct Uranus on Friday, and now here the sun opposite Uranus Saturday and Sunday, this is, again, very stimulating, electrifying, possibly revolutionary, innovative full moon that we can tap into. That tap into what is my truth, my expression. Gate 14 been another individual gate called the gate of power skills. This is the life force energy of the sacral center to move in its own mutative direction. The power of the sun offering us this opportunity, following authority. I always have to keep sprinkling that in here. You know, these are transits. So this is never me predicting what anybody should do other than follow strategy. We're just describing the frequencies within which we are living right now. But the sun is asking us, do we want to move in this personal mutative direction? And that Earth here on Saturday, line 1, being lined up with Uranus 8, line 1, in this individual creative mutative voice of contribution, of our inspirational contribution. But it does have that electrifying feel to it, no doubt. Venus will still be in that T-square with the nodes in the gate 58. So we're just feeling some drive, possibly some structure. How can we put this together? What can we adjust? How can we tend to the garden of our soul so that we can make this all work for ourselves, whatever this process is that we're each going through? And then let's go into Sunday. We'll wrap this up here. On Sunday, the sun moves into line 2 of that gate 14. And what we're getting here, and I'll be starting off my transit report next Monday, talking about this. This Mercury, as of Sunday, is moving into its exact opposition to Jupiter. Now, this will be the first of three because Mercury is going to turn retrograde very soon, pass over this opposition again the second time, and then move back a third time. So there's more to dive into here, but I do want to point it out that that first opposition, Mercury is currently in gate 26 at this time, and Jupiter still in gate 45. So we've got two tribal gates. We have both planets are in their detriment, but they're in what we call mutual reception. Jupiter rules Sagittarius, but it's in the opposite sign of Gemini, and Mercury rules Gemini, but it's in the opposite sign of Sagittarius. So it's an interesting dynamic. So even though they're both in their detriment or not at their ability to access all of their power and frequency, they're in each other's signs. So they are sort of helping each other out. And so I just get this sense of that tribal circuitry between the 26 and the 45. This is speaking to our allies. This is listening to our allies, our friends, our network, our community. We don't have to do this all alone. Others need our help, that we can be there from them, and then we can ask for that support back. So, but we're in a very communicative dynamic with this Jupiter opposition here. We're getting the high-minded ideas of Sagittarius and the hope and the dreams of what this mutative process we're going through may mean to us, but we're also wanting to understand the details of that Gemini and have all the conversations to put all the pieces in place. And so, again, could be a little scattered, could be a little confusing. It's not the clearest energy available because we're in the world of the underworld here still, but there's definitely a story playing out there. We'll come back to that transit again as that opposition will be in effect over the coming weeks ahead, and Mercury will go into retrograde. That'll be part of next week's story. So I think I'll wrap it up there. Just want to thank everybody for joining me and for listening. If you got some value out of this, we appreciate a like or a comment or maybe subscribe. We appreciate growing our community. I hope you're having a good Monday out there, and I wish you all the best as we head toward this full moon in Taurus. Thank you.